Hi, I'm Tiffany Curtis. This is my life story so far. Growing up, my family attended church sporadically, and no one really in my family had a close walk with the Lord, and we didn't really have a Christian home environment. Around age 8 or 9, I walked the aisle to be saved. You know, other people were doing this, and I didn't want to go to hell, but I don't think I completely knew what being saved meant. During my teenage years, I was constantly searching for love and acceptance. I had been attending church, but something still wasn't right, and I was angry, I was bitter, and I was resentful, and you know, looking back, I don't even know why. I don't know where that came from or why it was there, but it affected my relationships, and I went from relationship to relationship, and I would get in these relationships, and I would know that they weren't what I was searching for, but I would stay because I was needing this love. And at 16, I got pregnant with Brittany, and I married her dad, and then that began the cycle of marriage to marriage to marriage. And after my 4th divorce, I was just broken. I was done. I wanted a different life. I just didn't know how to go about getting that or what was causing the problem. I met Chad when I was about 30, and a few years later we married. And I would like to say that this is where our life just turned around and everything was perfect in my marriage, but it's not. It wasn't. You know, a few months into our marriage, we hated each other. And it was really a wonder we didn't divorce after just a few months. You know, in my previous marriages, if I could make my plan work out on paper and I knew I would be able to support myself and the kids, then I would leave. But with Chad, I was attending college full-time. I wasn't working, and I was kind of stuck there, and I was mad about that. About a year later, I got pregnant with Carter, and we started attending Pauline. And I would sit in church on Sundays, and the Lord I was just getting fed and poured into, and the Lord was working on me. He was healing me, but it was a slow process. It wasn't a few trips to church on Sunday morning. It was years of me sitting in there being poured into. A year and a half later, I was pregnant with Carson, and then 13 months later, we had Carly. You know, our marriage was still hard, but we weren't looking at divorce as the answer. We knew that it was going to take a commitment, and that's what we were willing to do. We wanted the Lord to be the center of our lives and the center of our children's lives. Not long after Carter was born, you know, I mean, we were coming to church, and you know, we were having these kids, but not long after Carter was born, I prayed a prayer that I think changed both of our lives. You know, since Chad was the problem in our marriage, I prayed that the Lord would bring him to his knees, and he would make him humble and make him see what was important, and you know, just knock him flat on his face. But the Lord knew what we both needed, and that is that we both needed to be on our knees and flat on our face. And this is where I met and fell in love with the Lord, and I began my true relationship with my Savior, my friend. And like I said, this wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't, I prayed a prayer and then it was answered and everything was good. This was a 5-year-long process. We filed bankruptcy. We were humiliated, we were embarrassed and ashamed, and we had this weight of the world on our shoulders. We'd go to bed at night thinking about it and drag it around all day with us thinking about it. It was the hardest time in my life. You know, we were scared. How were we going to survive, and how were we going to feed our kids and pay electricity? And it was hard. It was the hardest time in my life. But in that, I was so ready for it to be over. I was so ready for the Lord to just save us from this mess. But on the other hand, I was so thankful for this mess that we were in, because my marriage was growing stronger. My dependence and love for the Lord was growing stronger. My love for the church and the church family, it was just growing stronger. From the worst situation in my life, I was beginning to have the most amazing relationship with the Lord. And we have seen prayers answered in big ways, in ways that we never would have dreamed. Chad took his new job 3 years ago, and as soon as he left, the Lord had opened doors for him, and he opened them wide. And we have been so thankful for the presence of the Lord in his job, in our marriage, in our family. When Chad had taken his job, you know, every day we would pray. We would thank God for this job, and we would ask him to open doors for Chad, to give him favor. And Carson, every time he would pray, he would thank the Lord for Daddy's job, and Lord, please open those big doors for my daddy. And then he would look at me and say, why can't he open those doors? And one night I was talking to Carter and Carson about where we had been and what the Lord had done in our lives and all the hardships that we had had. And Carter had these big tears in his eye, and I looked at him and he said, these are tears of joy. Looking back over my life, I can see where the Lord has been with me through every relationship, every marriage. He was trying to get my attention, and me being as stubborn as I am, I was rejecting and running and fighting. Don't give up on people. Some of us are stubborn, and it just takes longer for us to find those keys to unlock our relationship with the Lord. But when we do, we are just as forgiven, and we receive the same amount of love and the same amount of grace as anybody else who may have walked a smoother path. And don't come into the church believing the lie that everybody else in this church, these church people, have got it all together. Because this is just a house full of forgiven sinners. My journey's not over, and my life is not problem-free, and we don't have it all together. But I'm no longer fighting, and I'm no longer angry with the Lord. We have a hope, and we have a future, and we know that the Lord has a plan for our lives, a plan for my life, and it's a good plan. I'm excited to see what the Lord has for my future. And I have regret over the years I spent away from Him, but I am so thankful that in all those years, He kept a hold on me, and I wasn't able to push Him away.